I wanna do now is making it last. Mothers and fathers, sisters and brothers, friends forever, strengthening the ties that keep us together. Mothers and fathers, sisters and brothers, friends forever, strengthening the ties that keep us together.
We started a conversation last time around. If you missed it, you need to find the first part of this conversation, because it's all about why should sex be introduced at church and school to ensure healthier marriage relationships. And with me today are Drainese, McLaren, a graphic artist, and Kevonn Grant, a youth leader. Let's continue the conversation.
For the most part, haven't given the young people a reliable source to come to within the church to understand why is it that the church even believes what it believes about sex. The context of marriage and stuff like that. Why is it that even though you look around and you see common law relationships where people are not even married, they're having sex outside of marriage, and yet still they seem to be happy. Stuff seems to be going on for them. Young people are looking out at that and they're saying, but the church makes it seem as if you have sex out of marriage, nothing can happen for you. Yeah. And so young people need to have a place where they can have these kinds of conversations so that they become more informed and make better decisions for themselves and not go and experiment. Because I don't believe that you have to experience to know.
Yeah. Drainese?
I would also say that they need to have a comfortable environment to be able to express their views and not feel judgment for. Because you can express your views, and it can always be heard, but the judgment and the ostracizing that comes with that, that causes persons to shy away from being able to express how they feel on certain matters. As it relates to sex, as it relates to marriage. Like, I think they had a program, my church had a program the other day where a lot of the couples in our church are having their 50th anniversary this year. So they were like, how on earth is it possible in an age where people are getting divorced 50%, whether it be in the church or outside of the church? How are you lasting this long? And they came and they broke down what are the steps, what are the things that they thought, what are the things that they did, their early years of marriage. Programs like those help you as a young person who is looking forward to things like marriage, what you want or your expectations, or formulate what it is that you need to do in order to have a healthy relationship. And those are good programs to have in a church. Issues on sex outside of marriage, sometimes, especially as it relates to older persons are coming from the age where I even remember my mom telling me that she wasn't allowed to walk on the same side of the street of NCU campus with a gentleman. I remember the days when you had to wear skirts and the guys were pants, and they're coming from a very reserved, a very
traditional, conservative,
very
quite
conservative.
Traditional, yes.
So for them to share that information too is not as easy. They're coming from that generation where they say if you kiss a girl you get pregnant, or if you kiss a guy you get pregnant. And I've heard some strange things out there, and I'm like, that's ridiculous.
But Drainese, you said earlier, because we're zeroed in on church, and you said earlier that you believe that if it is introduced specifically within church, people are more aware, clearer boundaries. Do you think those same principles then apply to the school setting?
Okay, well, as it relates to schools, I think boundaries on a whole are good things, regardless of coming from church perspective or coming from a school perspective. Coming from a school perspective might be, don't hit a girl, don't touch a girl, because that could cause problems for you as a gentleman when it comes down to her parents or her friends or whoever. But as it relates to sexual encounters now to say, don't remain in a classroom by yourself after school with a young lady. Go home, do your homework, assignments, and so on. Those are more the things that you will hear, and not necessarily, okay, as a young man, yes, you want the attention of a young lady, but then there's a time and a place to do that, and how to go about doing that is not necessarily taught, unless it's like boys' day or girls' day, and then you get that one little tidbit of information
from an outsider,
or your principal who you hardly see. And then it's more along the lines of the length of your skirt and your deodorant and how you carry your hair and stuff, and not necessarily on actual issues that males and females face in schools. And overseas, I can say that I've had sex ed class or phys ed classes that have a section of the curriculum dedicated to sexual education.
That's a foreign thing.
Yeah, but still, I was so traumatized by it all because it was showing me along the lines of STDs and not necessarily, okay, sexual education. Know your boundaries, know yourself, know the things that you want to accomplish, know the person who you're in a relationship with. Moving forward, know when to say no, know when to do this, and none of those things are really taught. It's more like, hey, if you have sex, you're gonna catch whatever is out there, and the statistics of you catching this are this many, and I feel like it's more traumatic than educational, which is something that's, it's just like, yeah, well, we're gonna do it anyway or whatever, because that's a view that was held.
I think the point you were making earlier about the right way to share the information is probably the issue in the schools. As she said, because even out in Jamaica, the tactic that I observe is sort of the scaring kind of vibe. So the church's angle is you're gonna go to hell if you fornicate, and the school's tactic is you're gonna die of STDs. And the reality is that young people today are getting information about these things from the wrong sources elsewhere. So in other words, it's not entirely false, but because you only give one side of the picture, because of the angle you're working, when they go out into the streets with the people who are experienced in these things, they tell them, listen, man, this is all you need to do. I hear some strange things about how to avoid certain things, plastic bag, bread bag, and I could traumatize you with the things that young people are doing nowadays because they're getting information on the other side of the conversation from the wrong sources. So the reality is, as Drainese was saying, whether or not you want to accept it, you try to scare them, but they're going to do it anyways because they're getting partial truths about the thing from the wrong source.
How do we correct that?
Exactly. The correction, I believe, I'm going to piggyback on what one of the youth leaders at my church did one time, said. At the time, I disagreed with him. He said that the fact is that young people in our church now are having premarital sex, getting themselves in problems. Because we know that this is the situation, the safest thing for us to do to try to help to fix the issue is to start first by getting them to understand the right way to do this if they can't abstain. At the time I disagreed with him. I was like, no, they must endure the punishment if they choose to break the law. But getting older now, I could understand what he's trying to say. We have to understand where we are as a society and try to tackle it where it is. The fact is, young people in our schools are having sex. Stop trying to scare them now, because when they go out, they're gonna learn the partial truths on the
Anyway,
good side,
right.
and they're gonna do it. What we should try to do now, I don't teach life skills, so I don't know if it's happening, but I think the approach should be more about helping them to understand proper things about sex. Helping them to understand safe sex, helping them to understand why it is better to wait until a particular age, both from the legal standpoint and from the ethical or moral standpoint. And so that young people become more informed about the thing, so that they can make better decisions. When you empower somebody knowledge-wise, then they are better able to assess a situation and make better decisions, because nothing we do can stop them from deciding to do what they want to do. The best thing we can do is to educate them enough so that they can have a more informed decision. It might not completely eradicate the issue, but at least we will have a generation of young people who are able to say, if I choose to do this now, am I doing it the right way? Is it the best thing for this young lady? I, as a guy, might not go through as many emotional changes if I do this right now. But maybe she will go through a lot more emotional changes. Am I prepared to do that? What I try to do personally at the school I'm teaching, I don't try to discourage the relationships I see on campus. Instead, when I notice a relationship and I know that myself and the student has a good enough rapport so that I can chat with him, I find him one away and I say, I noticed that you and so are moving close. Nice. But 1 and 2 times you and I can have a little talk about it. And by that, I simply mean, so how's the relationship going? What do you guys do for fun? That kind of stuff. You make a light conversation so that you don't come to them now and say, just don't have sex here. Don't have sex. Instead, you show interest in something bigger than sex. The whole idea of a relationship. You tackle it from there now, then you are better able to have a conversation with sex. Find out what they know about sex. And try to help them to understand that this aspect of it, and I saw it really go, or this is a better way to perhaps think about it. Have you considered this? And that kind of thing. I believe that when you do that, it might help these young people, and we need to give them some credit. They are smart. They are smart. Give them the information and trust them to make right decisions.
Drainese, because as we're wrapping up.
Okay, as it relates to what Kevonn said, I'd say ditto.
Okay.
But I would have to say that I'd commend our churches for stepping up, because I think a lot of them are making progress in terms of youth ministries and moving towards getting topics that are much needed on air, on actual air. So I must say, as for as many of the churches and camps and things that I've been to, I'm seeing that a lot more, and those topics are coming up, and that's really good. As it relates to schools, I think I'm going to leave that to Mr. Grant, because I really don't see many of these school children.
Right.
But I would have to say that whenever I see young students and they're coming up and they're doing good in school and so on, and I ask them how they're doing, and I try to reach out to them and talk to them and see what's going on in their life. I feel like young people today just want somebody to be interested in them.
That's right.
And want somebody who will be able to maybe spend a couple minutes with them and say hello and so on. Somebody that they can get used to and even have conversations that they probably wouldn't have with their parents with. And I try to make myself available in that regard, so that if needs be, I can be able to say, whenever that time comes, this is how you go about said topic. Or this is how you go from a Christian perspective and from a personal perspective. This is how you need to go about this.
Well, the conversation this time around was, why should sex be introduced at church and school to ensure healthier marriage relationships? If for you that question wasn't answered, if you got nothing else, I trust that what Drainese said just now is that don't sit and wait on the church or the school to help our young people in your own little circle where you in some way will impact young people, make a difference, and help to point them in that direction. This was Making It Last. Until next time, I am Noreen Daly.
You loving me, I loving you. Mothers and fathers, husbands and wives, sisters and brothers, friends for life, won't live in the past. All I wanna do now is making it last.